Alright, so in this video, I'm going to explain to you why past papers is legit the only studying method that you need if you want to ace your exams. I'm going to be completely honest with you. There's so much shit that's in the study YouTuber space that it's honestly not even funny. A lot of these guys, they keep talking about some weird studying techniques that don't actually work when you look at the science. And so I just want to cut through all of that BS and just to explain to you the most effective studying technique, which is past papers. Within this video, I'm going to explain three things. Number one, why past papers are actually so useful. Number two, how to actually do them effectively, because like most people actually get them wrong. And number three, how I implement past papers in my own studying routine as well. My name is Matthew. I graduated with 3 stars and 1A in my A-level exams. And from there, I graduated high school as valedictorian, got accepted into the University of Hong Kong. In HKU, I'm taking pretty difficult courses like linear algebra, probability and statistics, and financial derivatives. So the first thing that I have is something called the 80-20 rule. There was this Italian farmer named Pareto, and he found that like 20% of pea pods or something in his garden produced like 80% of the peas. And when he actually found this out, he then conducted further research and actually discovered that this principle does not just hold true in the garden, it actually holds true in so many other areas of life as well. One example would be like the wealth inequality gap. Something like 10% of individuals in a country own like 90% of the total wealth. Like, isn't that crazy? And I could just extend this to my own YouTube channel as well. Like, if you go through my YouTube channel and search for like the videos and stuff, like don't do that now, but like when you take a look at it, you'll find out that like 5 to 10% of my YouTube videos contribute about 90 to 95% of my total views. So it's like, honestly, it's that asymmetric. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because this, I generally think, also extends to studying as well. And I think that past papers are the 20% that leads to the 80% of the results. I genuinely think that. Firstly, when you do a past paper, what is it like? Well, what is it close to? Well, it's literally just you taking the exam, but at home. If you're doing them correctly, which I'll explain to you how to do in a second, you're gonna be basically bringing the exam home and doing the exam, but you're not actually sitting the exam. That's why it's called a practice exam. Like, that's why some people call it a practice exam. So the thing is, like, according to the 80-20 rule, there's so much crap out there. Like, what? People talk about the Feynman technique, like it's some sort of study method you can just implement on a day-to-day basis. Who the hell is gonna sit down and like explain stuff to a teddy bear for like 20 minutes straight? Like, if you do that, like, I'm sorry, but like, that's just, you're kind of stupid. Think about it. Like, the hardcore Asian kids, the Asian kids who go to Gaokao. Actually, I had a couple of friends here living in this dormitory who took the Chinese Gaokao exams. This is like the hardest board exam in the world. And when I asked them, how do you guys study? They literally just responded with past papers. They just drilled that every single day, 7 to 8 hours a day. They would literally wake up, go to school, come back, do extra tutorial sessions which contain past papers. Then they would study on their own until like 10, 11, 12 a.m. doing past papers, and then they would go to sleep. And they would just repeat that for like years. They're not gonna be spending time doing some random study method that they saw on study Instagram or like study TikTok just because it looked pretty. Like, seriously, don't fall into that trap. You're just gonna waste your time. Second thing I have in my script is the competition analogy. So the competition analogy is basically saying that if you practice like you play, then you will play like you practice. Like, for example, let's say I'm trying to practice for a basketball game. Would I be like on my own watching a YouTube video explaining how to play basketball? No, right? It's kind of stupid if I just sit down for like 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the competition and just watch YouTube videos on how to study basketball. Like, how to play basketball. Like, you get what I mean, right? Because learning is not just studying. Like, it's not just about like book learning, you know, like learning subjects and stuff. Learning is also about like learning skills, learning sports. Why don't we extend that same domain knowledge into the studying domain as well? The final exam is literally just a test of your accuracy and your speed. If you get those two correctly, which you do them by grinding past papers repeatedly and quickly. So I'll give you another example. If you're studying computer science related subjects like I am, you probably know this thing called lead code. You wouldn't grind lead code if you were preparing for like a quant trading interview, right? Because in a quant trading interview, they're going to be testing you on your mental maths, your probability and statistics, and you'll throw in some random brain teasers like how many elephants can fit in this room, for example. They're not going to be asking you lead code questions. So would it make sense for you as a person who's going to take the quant trading interview to be studying lead code, right? Instead of studying lead code, you'd probably be grinding probability and statistics questions, your combinatorics, your expected value, conditional probability. The realistic thing is like in university, it's more of a test of time and how much you're able to cram in like 4 months rather than how much you actually understand the knowledge. But the past papers, if you just look back at them, they will literally show you how they will test you in the future exams as well. Now, the second reason why doing past papers actually works is because of something called interleaving. Interleaving is a phenomenon that occurs when you're studying many different topics together. For example, let me illustrate. You have chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. When you open a past paper, it's probably a mix of all of these three. And so when you're doing a past paper, your brain has to switch from doing one topic, then doing another topic, then doing another topic. Interleaving creates this thing called desirable difficulty. Because when you're doing multiple topics at once, your brain has to switch between those topics. So for example, let's say you're doing like integration, then you're doing derivatives, like dy, dx and stuff like that. Your brain is probably gonna like find some subtle connection between the two. Or at least your brain will tell you how the derivatives chapter and the integration chapter is different from each other. And because you're able to find those differences as you're doing those past papers, like this is not something that you can physically see. Like this is something that your brain subconsciously processes. This actually helps you remember the information as a whole much better. This is not something I knew about until I actually did my research on this. And if you're enjoying this type of content and you want to actually learn to study more effectively and using science-based and evidence-based studying methods, you can check out the first link in the description, which is my mentorship program. We have courses on how to study more effectively, how to manage your time, and basically everything you need to succeed as a college or university student. If that sounds interesting to you and you want more personalized help from me, you can check out the first link in the description. But anyways, this is also this thing called the generation effect when it comes to studying. So the generation effect is basically an effect that states that your brain remembers information better if it was the one that created the information. Okay, if that sounds like a little bit stupid, bear with me. So basically it's something like this. Remember that last conversation you had with someone? Like a really deep, insightful, or meaningful conversation? Think about, do you remember like the stuff that he said? Or do you remember the stuff that you said? Because I remember one time where I was at a quant trading competition. I met this guy and we were literally we were networking and we were just talking about life, school, and studies in general. Like he was a year 2 student studying data science and engineering. And as a fintech guy, I was like talking to him about, oh, how are you doing in this course, and blah, 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 blah. We had some small talk, right? But then we moved on to like the more deep conversations. For example, like how success really demanded some sort of sacrifice when we're in university. Because this guy was also really competent, right? This guy was a startup founder and he was the president of the Data Science Association in HKU. And he was doing pretty well in his studies as well. So I was like, we were talking about like what exactly makes a person in HKU successful. To be completely honest, I don't remember most of the stuff that he said, but I did remember a lot of the stuff that I said. And I remember talking to him and I remember literally giving him this analogy where if you were Genghis Khan and you were trying to conquer the world, what would you do? You wouldn't send like 10% of your army into every single country, right? Because your army is just going to get demolished and wiped out. You would probably send 100% of your army into one country and then conquer the country, then move on to the next one, right? So the reason why I remember this so clearly in my head was because I was the one who came up with the damn idea. It makes sense, doesn't it? You remember the stuff that you sent more than the stuff that you heard. Like as humans, this is just a reality. And like this is just, you can see this for yourself. Like in literally every conversation that you have, you remember the stuff that you said more than the stuff that you heard. If you were the one that was yapping a lot, which in that conversation, low-key, I was yapping quite a lot. So I remember a lot of stuff that I said. So why that matters is when you're studying, it's literally the same logic. There's a reason why when you're doing questions and writing out the solutions, you remember the solutions more when you are the one that's actually writing them out. So if you were the one that's writing a solution to a past paper, right? You probably remember this a lot more than if you were watching like someone like the organic maths tutor explain how to solve like row reduce matrices in linear algebra. You are the one that's creating the solution. So therefore, your brain must think that is actually important. Most learning happens in the brain. Most people forget that and they think that just rereading and absorbing more information is gonna allow them to somehow learn the information by osmosis. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just a very retarded way to think about it. I'm sorry, but like that's just a bit stupid in my opinion. So when you're generating questions, when you're generating solutions, that's how you learn more effectively. So now I'm going to explain to you how to actually do past papers more effectively. And for this, I have two key ideas. So the first one is you need to do them under timed exam conditions. Okay, my handwriting is absolutely terrible. So why timed exam conditions? Well, remember the competition analogy I gave you earlier? If you practice like you play, then you would play like you practice. Then it's the same logic that extends to studying. If you're studying for a final exam, you probably want to replicate the conditions of that final exam as much as you would do if you were practicing for a basketball game. In a real game, like we're not going to be sitting around explaining how this play leads to this play and how passing this ball leads to this formation. Like, no. We didn't have all that stuff. We learned the theory beforehand, but like around 1 week to 2 weeks before the game, it's all just playing pickup because that is the most realistic to a game scenario. You know what you have to do. You just need to sit down, time yourself, make sure you don't cheat by looking at your notes and actually just do those exam papers under timed exam conditions. It's that easy. And when you're doing those timed exam conditions, you want to make sure that you're actually focused. This is an exam. Like, this is a practice exam. You need to treat your practice exam like a real exam. The more you sweat in training, the less you will bleed in battle. So, you need to be doing it under timed exam conditions. And here's what I do. Firstly, I set a timer. For example, if it's like a 2-hour exam, like I did for derivatives, I took it for I set a timer for basically just 2 hours. So you can set this timer to like 2 hours, 3 hours, and it would do a strict countdown timer and you cannot pause the timer. So you cannot actually cheat on this. When you time this timer, you will realize that, okay, crap, you only have 2 hours. You're more likely to be focused when doing the past paper. This is something called Parkinson's law, by the way. So if you're given like 10 hours to study for a maths past paper, like guess what? You will probably take 10 hours or maybe like 6 to 7 hours to do that one past paper. But if you just spend 2 hours, which is like the given amount of time that they give you on the exam, and use those 2 hours effectively, you're gonna be very, very focused when you're doing the past paper. If you set yourself a countdown timer, time starts to feel real. So yeah, that's one of the things. Second thing is focusing on speed. This is something that so many people, so many students don't actually understand. They think that if they are able to recall the information and actually understand it, they're able to simply ace the course. Like, no, that is not actually the case. Because when you're in the exam, speed is actually very, very important. Like, I'm gonna use myself as an example. In year 1 and year 2, I got cooked by a bunch of my university courses, like corporate finance, linear algebra, because I didn't actually finish on time. Like, I'll remember I was sitting in the exam hall with like 200 other students, and I would ran out of time in the exam because I didn't focus on speed beforehand. This was one mistake I made when I was in year 1 of my university. And I'm sure as hell I'm not making that same mistake again. In this semester, I switched up my studying approach. I told myself, okay, Matthew, you're gonna try and do as many past papers in as fast as possible of a time as possible. So like, for example, if I was doing one past paper, I would try to do that past paper as quickly as I would. So like, no like messing around, no texting people midway through doing my past paper, and not doing all of like other unnecessary stuff. And what ended up happening was when I actually sat the exam, when I was doing the paper, I realized that I actually made a mistake beforehand. And because I did this paper so quickly, I was able to go back to that question and redo the entire question again. So what I'm trying to say is that if you do the past paper quick enough, you have more time to sit down and double check and think about your answer. That is really important. And this is what the top students actually do. There was one time when I was sitting another exam, it actually was the same course, but for the midterm. Like there was this one Chinese guy who stood up in the 1 hour mark. Like there was 1 hour left in the exam, and this guy literally just stood up and left the freaking exam hall. Like this guy literally just said like, okay, screw it. I'm done with this shit. I'm just gonna leave the exam room. He was that fast. And I probably tell you that this guy probably grinded so many past papers. He probably practiced so many past papers under timed exam conditions. And because he was able to do it so quickly, he was able to double check his work and then leave the exam hall. Like that was how confident he was in the exam. So that is a level of confidence that you need to be having when you're doing past papers. So a couple of other bonus tips that I have for past papers in my mind is when you're doing past papers, try and take 2 to 5 minutes to skim the past paper before you even start attempting the questions. The reason why this actually works is because something called priming. So again, so this is like an extra study tip, right? Like bonus study tip or like exam tips that I did in university. When you first get the exam in the exam room, or when you're doing the past papers, take 2 to 5 minutes to skim the question bank. What this effectively does is that it primes you subconsciously of what the paper is about. So like if you're doing a question and you just don't know how to solve it, you just skip the question and just do another question. When you're doing that other question, your brain actually is subconsciously processing this other question at the back of your mind. And so in that same exam that I was talking about earlier, I was able to get an answer for one of the other questions when I was solving another question. And that actually saved my life, to be completely fair. So yeah, that's just another tip I have for past papers. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. If there's literally one key takeaway that you have after watching this, is to go do more past papers under timed exam conditions. This is how you're gonna be able to get higher marks. No, you don't need to highlight your notes. No, you probably don't even need to do mind maps, to be completely honest. No, you do not need to use the Feynman technique. And no, you do not need to use the other stupid ass study techniques that you see on Instagram. You just need to focus on one study technique, and that is past papers. And if you want extra help from me, of course, you can check the first link in the description below. But as always, may God guide us on the right path, and I'll see you in the next video.